So, welcome to the Energy Saving Podcast. I'm George Ablett, the Energy Saving Specialist for the Council, and I'm pleased again to welcome back Mark Thompson, who's very kindly volunteers as a community energy coach, providing the advice to the residents in the borough.
Hi, George.
Hi, Mark. Good to have you back again.
Thank you.
So, another hot topic on energy saving is thermostatic radiator valves. Those small plastic dials at the bottom of your radiators, and how to use these correctly. We've had a few bits of feedback saying that these would be really good to have some advice on. So, have you got any tips for using these correctly?
Yes, these are really misunderstood things, and I only really properly understood them for a year or so ago. And people look at a radiator valve and it's got a scale of 1 to 5 on it, and there's nothing that tells you what that means. And actually, you have to think about that 1 to 5 scale as a temperature range. Should be a temperature range. You have to think of it as a temperature scale. So setting 3 on a thermostatic radiator valve will control the temperature of a room pretty accurately to about 20 degrees C, and it won't let the temperature in the room go above that, which is a good temperature for most people. That's a good sort of middle of the road temperature for most people in most situations, but we're all different. Setting number 4 is actually equivalent to about 24 degrees centigrade, and setting number 5 is a setting that's equivalent to about 28 degrees centigrade. So, most people are very comfortable around 20 degrees. Setting 4 is at 24 degrees is a lot higher. So if you're going into a room and you want to make the room a little bit warmer, and you probably normally only want that room to be maybe a degree or 2 warmer than the temperature it's at, just nudge the dial up a little bit. If you go up to setting number 4, it will the radiator will come on, and it will increase hot water flow through the radiator, and it will try to get the room up to 24 degrees, which is probably a lot warmer than you actually want. So treat these dials as a temperature dial, make very small adjustments, and the room will respond, the radiator will respond, and the room will control to a temperature that's just a little bit more warmer or a little bit cooler than the temperature that you started off at. So always make adjustments in very small ways. And using radiator valves in this way, using them properly like that, can save around about £200 on the average energy bill, which is really worthwhile. And that's based on really strong evidence that Salford University have done with lots of test work that they've done. So you have to think of these valves not as an on-off valve. Think of them as a temperature control valve, because they do a really, really good job with that. They are unsung heroes that aren't appreciated. And I go into many places, many homes, and I go into pubs, and I see radiators that are sat there at number 4 or number 5, and the rooms are really, really warm because people don't understand how these valves work. So avoid overheating your room unnecessarily, and you will save a lot of money on your gas heating, or oil if it's oil.
Absolutely, Mark. I think that's really, really important. And also, give that room a chance to warm up. Don't just go in there and turn up the thermostatic radiator valve expecting it to make a big difference in terms of how you feel the heat. It still takes time to warm a room.
Yeah, you have to wait for a good half an hour to an hour, and the room will respond, and the temperature will control, but never go into a room that's not warm enough and turn it up to number 5. That happens a lot, and the room won't warm up any quicker, and what will happen is you'll walk away, or you'll go out and you'll come back in later, and that room will have got warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer, because basically when it's set to number 5, it's not controlling temperature at all, really. It's just open game for the radiator to make the room as warm as you want. So if it's not warm enough, nudge it. Never put it to number 5. If you go into a room that's too hot, never turn the radiator right off. Turn that valve right off. Put it back to number 3, because that's probably where you really, really want it.
Fantastic, Mark. And are there any other do's and don'ts and any other tips around thermostatic radiator valves?
If you've got a room that you don't use very much, turn that valve completely off. Don't sort of leave it on number 2 or number 1 or anything like that, because a room in a modern house will not freeze. You will never end up with freezing pipes. Don't worry about that. There is a frost protection feature built into these things. You'd have to have an extreme winter with ice on the insides of the windows for indoor pipes to have any chance of freezing. And then a couple of other tips. Once you have got to know the numbers on your radiator valve a bit better and sort of focused on it, put a felt tip pen mark on the setting that you like for an individual room. So in our guest room, the room we use for guests, for example, spare room, we've got a little felt tip pen mark on there. So when we've got visitors coming, we put that radiator valve to that position. And if you do that on all your radiator valves, then if somebody's changed the radiator valve setting or you've done it, you can always put it back to the setting you know is about right for you, for your comfort levels for that individual room. And then one other tip, which isn't really directly connected with thermostatic radiator valves, is if you can possibly do it, tuck your curtains in behind the radiators. If you've got curtains that cover the radiators, particularly full-length curtains, you're really encouraging a lot of that heat to go out the window and not into the room. So if you can possibly tuck them in behind the radiators, or if they're too long to do that, then roll them up and stick them on the windowsill. A lot of people do that, but not everybody does, and it will get all that heat going into the room and to you, not out the window. And even if you've got really good glazing, it will still go out of the window, a lot of that heat.
Absolutely, Mark. That's why I don't like having radiators under the windows where possible, and if you can, move them. Architects tend not to agree with me for some reason, but there we go. Another major tip there is if you have a radiator near your main thermostat in the house, don't have that radiator on full, because that will affect the thermostat and make the entire rest of the house cool. So think about the positioning of where your main thermostat is. Is it in the right place? And if you've got a thermostatic radiator valve near it, that's the one to turn down to get better control across the house.
Yeah, and also everything I've talked about, and all the temperatures I've talked about, and the do's and don'ts for a thermostatic radiator valve, they're all on my website, which is www.getenergysavvy.info, which is the website I started up in September purely to help provide education and information about home energy efficiency in really simple, clear ways. So it's something I do purely as a hobby, for no commercial gain or personal reward at all.
That's great, Mark, and we've got lots of energy saving tips on the council website as well, including the links across to Mark's website. Thanks for coming on and talking again, Mark. We really do appreciate it, and we really do hope some of our staff and residents can make some of the energy savings at home as a result of this information. No doubt we'll be talking to you again in future, Mark. Thank you again.
Thank you.